Midlife crisis and life purpose. While we are living life, all of a sudden something shifts. Business either does not go well, job either lost, marriage, family, children, parents, something, or all of it sometimes. In this now we start questioning who, what, where, how and why, what is, what for, how come. Depending on our question will lead to a particular answer. The more deep the question, the more closer to the root we'll come to the problem or the issue. If we continuously persist that this now is not working, I have to make it work by hook or by crook or by whatever, somehow or another there is a chance that it might be coming from stubbornness rather than an openness to see if this is no longer working, why it is. A bit of self-reflection is required. More often than not, a midlife crisis is simply a jolt from life to say that, okay, you have perhaps deviated from your soul mission or your life purpose. It is time to come on track. So that which is not in aligned with whatever it is that you need to do, want to do, are here to do, shall be destroyed. Now, because we've spent nearly our entire lifetime investing into that, whatever it is we were doing that was not aligned with us, it was some sort of deviation from what we had set out to do in the first place, or something not related at all. The ego does not break from it as easily. So depression is there, anger is there, resentment is there, bitterness is there, everything is there. Sometimes the questioning of self-worth is there. Everything goes up into a question mark. No, sometimes it does not also. That's little bit not so good. It was because of the pandemic. It was because of X. It was because of Y. It was because of Z. It was because of this and that and the other thing. Everything except. When we say here now, it does not mean blame something or someone. It is either blaming outside or it is blaming inside. But someone has to be a culprit of something going wrong. No. It is not aligned. It did not sustain. It is simple as that. It is not good, bad, ugly, right, wrong, to be blamed. None of that. Part of the questioning, when we are questioning ourselves or the situation or trying to understand what exactly happened, it is important that we ask the correct questions phrased correctly. When we say correctly, it means not with a victim consciousness, not with a mitre consciousness, not with an aggressor consciousness, not with anything that has to do with pushing and pulling. Yes, this must be this way. Why is it not this way? How come it is it? Not with that. With an openness, with a calmness, with a peacefulness, with this, what exactly happened here? Why has it happened? Open, seeing what comes back. Somewhere we will find that in our subconscious mind, perhaps we weren't really content doing what we are doing, being where we were, etc. Somehow or another, it is not aligned with heart, soul, and mind. The more neutrally we see it, the more aspects tend to emerge. More often than not, we search for our life purpose as if it is something separate from the birth itself. It has always been there. It is something that we knew as children before the other corruption set in of the world and family. it is somewhere inside the heart there is some strange, logical, illogical desire. Not the simple plain desires of, okay, you go, you meet a horse and now you want to become a horse rider. Or, oh, you see a city and now you want to build skyscrapers. Or you, whatever it is, it's not on the phase level. It is something that is persisted. It is something that inherently it was there. Now, because we are children and impressionable, it gets expressed in certain ways. So, in the sense that, for example, if you want to feed every cat that you ever came across, because you saw one cat and you fell in love with it, and that is the bhav that came, and then ever since then, throughout childhood, every single time you see a cat, you want to feed it compulsively. It is not limited to the expression of feeding the cat. Perhaps where you find lack in the world, you want to fill that void, or you want to see that void filled. Larger. Scale it up, keep it more general. In this now, there is still yet another layer behind this now, so that means somehow another lack is perceived. So now, the ego will say, okay, wherever there's lack, I will fulfill. So as we grow up, then it'll find other ways to fill certain voids and certain gaps. As we continue now, we're trying to fill it. Either we won't be able to fill it, or we are filling and it's still the void. It's still a gap. Somewhere now, another frustration will creep in. It is, again, the next stage we have to go to. That it's not only a gap, there is more to it. There is a certain thought process of a gap being there. From our side also, from the world side also, it is a collective impression. Whether there is a gap or not becomes the question. It becomes the contemplation. It is to go deeper. Now, the approach which we have taken as far as removing the gap, is it just filling that will do it? Or is there something more required? Perhaps a change in perspective, a change in perception, a change in modus operandi. Seeing where the lack actually lies. Is it in the physicality of things? Is it on the plate? Is it in the relationship? Or is it in the mind and heart? If in the mind and heart now, how? Where? What is the root? Not in childhood this has happened and that is the root of it. There is some thought we have created, some belief we have harbored, some emotion we have held on to from this lifetime or lifetimes before. More digging required. Finding out, pattern, cycle, one thing manifested into many. Clean that now. As we clean our own mess, our own psyche, our own beliefs, our own thoughts, our own emotions. Why I call it a mess is because these things tend to pollute our surroundings, inner and outer. When things are scattered and unorganized, it is called a mess. So the same thing, certain thoughts, certain beliefs, certain emotions, certain occurrences, so on and so forth, we hold on to, and it affects our life inevitably. It affects our interaction. It affects our process. And more often than not, it muddles them. It does not allow us to see things clearly. So now as we clear these things become more clear. We are also able to see, by extension, others having the same issue. Because we are human, because we have common tendencies, we have common emotions, we have common thoughts, we have collective beliefs, we have collective thoughts, it is simple now to decode where the problem lies, how the problem lies, and how the problem is being executed, and how when you remove the problem is solved. Now the approach of how to solve that now, it's one thing to realize it, it's another thing to have others understand or realize that. That becomes the next challenge. or the next phase. Sometimes it is for us to do, sometimes it is not for us to do, sometimes it is just clearing our own, and then that is it. With our clearing of own, others may see and follow, because convincing will not work. Hammering it in will not work. Blackmailing will not work. Scaring people into doing it will not work. It is adding more fear and more scare and more nonsense to this thing. Now, how we go about that is a whole other story. Because we already have certain talents, we have certain inclinations, we have certain likings. If we are more cerebral, then perhaps building bridges and buildings, or certain types of housing or constructions where, again, nature is accumulated more into it, accounted for into it, things. If we are culinary, again, the more bio-friendly, this bio-friendly and that bio-friendly also gets incorporated. If we are artistic, then things that are more inspirational, things that more solve the problems, things that more bring us, basically, whether it is through food, whether it is through construction, whether it is through engineering, through art, through writing, through something. Interactions with family, interactions with ourselves, when we are by ourselves, when there is no other soul around, visibly, then what we are creating then, on the very subtle level, on the very vibrational level, all of that becomes part of the purpose, part of the modus operandi, part of the execution. Now it's not limited to the third dimension only, it goes beyond that. Now we're taking heart, mind, body, soul, everything into account. Part of that shake on a midlife crisis is getting us back to that purpose. The purpose being something being to addressed on the mind, body, heart, all levels. Now it can be the same, incorporating the soul into it. It can be different now, seeing that, okay, perhaps that way of executing was not perhaps the correct way, then there's a better way that can be done. That also still plays to talents, that also still plays to interests, that also still plays to abilities. So that is something to sit with a little bit.